My name is Raul Caruso, and I'm happy to uh, be here in this virtual roundtable as director of CESPIC. CESPIC is the European Center of Peace Science Integration Cooperation of Catholic University Our Lady of Good Counsel of Tirana, Zoya Keshitemire. And as director of CESPIC, I'm particularly honored to introduce this roundtable because we have the honor to have among our speakers the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy, and also His Excellence the Deputy Ambassador of the Republic of Italy, Alberto Petrangeli, and also I'm happy to tell you that this roundtable is within the
Excuse me, we can't hear anything. Claudio, do something, please.
Please switch off the microphones.
Yes, please.
Please switch off the microphones. This roundtable is within the program of the summer school in peace science, the summer school which is titled Roots of War and Establishment of a Lasting Peace, which is at its 5th edition. As a university, we are pretty proud of organizing this summer school on peace here in Tirana. And so this is the open event, open to the public event within this program. So now I'm stopping here, and I'm leaving the floor to the magnificent Rector Magnificus of our university, Professor Bruno Giardina.
Thank you very much, Raul. And first of all, let me thank very much the organizer, and therefore especially Professor Caruso, the organizer of this interesting and stimulating roundtable. My warmest welcome to all of you, to the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy, Professor Emanuela del Re, and to the Vice Ambassador Alberto Petrangeli. Of course, a special thanks to all the speakers, which will be the key of this workshop. For sure, each of us will become enriched of a number of ideas which will be of great utility for our future work. I believe that it is important to outline that universities play a very crucial role in the education of current and future leaders and in the development of interreligious dialogue, which is Coexistence and Peace, as the title of this roundtable outlines. All these topics, in fact, are interconnected with a sustainable development and a significant social innovation, which should be based on a high level of knowledge sharing or dissemination, which of course in turn is based on interaction and integration between people. In this sense, universities are the ideal place to develop an increasing ease with which somebody on one side of the world can interact with somebody on the other side of the world. An important characteristic process is the absence of any type of discrimination and the free access to every role of the academic activities. Moreover, and this is a point for me very important, moreover, we have to consider with great attention all the student exchange programs which are intended to increase the understanding and tolerance of other cultures, as well as improving their language skills and broadening their social horizons. In other words, I think we are confronted with a sort of cultural globalization and therefore with the transmission of ideas, meanings, and values around the world in such a way as to extend and intensify social relations. The circulation of cultures enables individuals to partake in extended social relations that cross national and regional borders. Cultural diffusion is the spread of ideas, styles, religions, technologies, and hence is at the basis of a new transformation process. And it is only, and this is our task, it is only by a fine-tuning of this process that we may reach the goal of our work, improving our ability to prevent and treat war. In conclusion, I really thanks to everybody to be here. And I think that due to the experience of the speakers, I'm sure it would be a very interesting and stimulating experience. Thanks again, and good work to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Rector. And now it's time to welcome the Ambassador Alberto Petrangeli, who is bringing out his address. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Rector, Deputy Minister, professors, other participants to this roundtable. I am especially honored and pleased to welcome the start of the summer school on behalf of the Embassy of Italy in Tirana. I just, of course, I agree with what the Rector just said on the importance of education to create a future generation and to create and stimulate the critical spirit which is necessary for our democracies. I also would like to underline this roundtable, because in this period, I mean, of course, in the war, we are talking about Abrahamic agreements, and we are talking about interfaith dialogue. So this is really a crucial moment to talk about that, also in view on the next encyclical message that the Pope has announced he will issue in the next weeks. And it is also very appropriate that our university that is based in Tirana, although it is an Italian Catholic university, has taken up this subject. In fact, Albania has been for centuries, I mean, an example of how religions can coexist peacefully. I mean, in the past, I mean, the religious differences has never been a source of conflict in this country. and this is especially significant if we think that this year marks the 25th anniversary of the end of the Balkans War, where, as you know, I mean, religions have been used as a political tool. Important example of coexistence, and can be exported to other countries in the region and also in other parts of the world. Therefore, I wish you good work for the roundtable of today. And as Embassy of Italy, we stand close to the University, Our Lady, Catholic University of Tirana, and we strictly follow and support the job you are doing here in Tirana to create the leading platform. And I give you back the floor.
Raul, hai il microfono spento.
Thanks, Ambassador. I'm not wasting any other time, just 5 seconds to say that this roundtable is included within a stream of events we organized as CESPIC on this topic of coexistence between religious communities. You know that for Balkans in particular, this is a crucial topic, and I'm happy that today we can host some distinguished witnesses of that can speak, can talk on this. So I personally thank one more time Emanuela Del Re, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy. I personally thank the Ambassador. I personally thank Professor Paolo Naso from Sapienza University of Rome. And now I leave the floor to the chair, to Claudio Paravati, who is their Director of Confronti. I'm happy to say that Confronti is now a lifelong partner of CESPIC, I can say, because I've been cooperating for years now. And so I'm happy that Claudio is chairing this meeting. Go, Claudio.
Faleminderit, Shumu Faleminderit to all of you. Thank you very much, Mr. Professor Raul Caruso and everybody. It's a great honor to be here. It's a great chance to speak together about a very big and important issue. So we need just a couple of seconds to have a check sound with the Vice Ministry because she has some problem in connection. Paolo, do you hear us?
Yes, I can.
So let's try again with the Vice Ministry. Emanuela, can you hear us? Something's going wrong, unfortunately. Can someone help us in some way? Okay, I try a call, Raul, just a second.
Oh, we are getting technical help.
You're trying to fix the problem, but we have some problem with the microphone, the Vice Ministry, or something went wrong in the connection. So ok, let's try that.
La Vice Ministra ci sente?
No, purtroppo dice molto male. Okay, we are trying to fix everything, so be calm, be happy. Thank you for being here. We have very many people all together, almost 100 people. So this is the result of a good work of the university, the Catholic University in Tirana, Our Lady of Good Counsel. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you thank you to Professor Caruso and the CESPIC, as we say in Italian, the CESPIC, European Center for Peace Science. How important is, you know, to work on the peace concept with a scientific method. I mean, in the university, this is a very great goal we have to face together. And it's a very honor, a big honor for us in Confronti. Confronti, we are based in Rome. This is Rome, a sunny day. We are a magazine, and we have a book like this one. This is The God of Migrants. So we work on religious dialogue, on cultural dialogue, and how important it is to work between Rome and Tirana. Emanuela, we hear you. Welcome, welcome.
Very good. No, I just said, continue your self-presentation, self-promotion. Okay.
How wonderful is to work between Rome and Tirana together. Rome and Tirana, yes. This is a very big bridge with the west and the east of Europe, and could be a wall. So we have to work for a bridge, for dialogue, and we have a great honor today. We speak about this thing with the Vice Ministry of our government, Emanuela Del Re, one of the most prepared person on Balkans and cooperation and foreign affairs, and Paolo Naso. She's a good person, but she wrote this book. These religions are a way to peace. Wrong. Wrong. He said this is wrong. Now we're gonna discover why this is wrong. But Vice Ministry, the floor is yours. My first question is why religions are way to peace or are not way to peace?
Thank you very much, Claudio. First of all, Mir Brema Tejita. You know very well that I've spent a lot of time in Albania, so being between Italy and Albania for me is not something new. It's something that represents great part of my life, because I started going to Albania. I arrived actually in Albania in 1991, and I've been living there for 3 years, and then continuously I kept my relations with the country, with the population, with friends, with a huge number of activities. So for me, it's not new. I feel somehow half Albanian in a sense. I've been adopted by the population and by the country. So I'm very happy to talk to my Albanian friends as well as my Italian friends. Unfortunately, for technical issues, I couldn't hear what was said before, but I will go straight to the issue, starting from my own reflections, because I cannot comment on my previous speakers' thoughts. I can say that there is not a precise answer to this very complex question, in the sense that there are a very great number of variables that intervene when we talk about the relationship between, as a causal model between religion and peace and religion and conflict. I would like to highlight the fact that in general, I tend to avoid making an immediate connection between these two concepts, religion conflict and religion peace, these two equations, so to speak, because I am really convinced, after spending 30 years on the field in different conflict areas, especially Israel, Iraq, Albania in the old times, but as well as Kosovo, Bosnia, Afghanistan, that in fact the real motivation by which religion can become a source of conflict, or instead be a catalyzer and become a source of peace, are very much related to the local condition, not necessarily to the doctrine. It is very much related to tradition, and I think that unless there is a very negative mixture between religion and local traditions, conflict doesn't explode. And when there is instead a good mixture with local tradition, coexistence and peace is possible. Therefore, I wouldn't generalize. I wouldn't say that one religion is peaceful, another religion is conflictual, or can create conflicts, or is aggressive. I think that these generalizations have really done already enough damage to the general thinking at global level, and I think that we should completely change the narrative. I think that there are a number of reasons that are determining the negative mixture of religion and tradition, especially when there are, and most of you are particularly aware of this because there are scholars here and I know them. There are, for instance, very strong inequalities within the same population, or maybe there is some social trigger or political trigger that intervenes and changes the actual balance between the different groups, religious groups that are coexisting in a specific area, and suddenly or out of the blue become aware of the fact that they are a minority and that they are discriminated. One case that I know very well, I know that I have to speak very quickly and very shortly. One case that I know very well is the case of the Yazidis, with which I lived for quite a while, much longer before than the arrival of Daesh in the region, and much long before the actual persecution they suffered from Daesh, which was, apart from anything, the 73rd in their history. The Yazidis have gone through different phases, and I think it's a particularly interesting case which represents a number of other similar conditions, especially regarding peace and religion and peace and religion and conflict, because they have been discriminated. They were mainly marginalized. They were considered citizens who were not dignified enough to enjoy the same rights of others, and this must be said. And their strategy to protecting themselves was that of being completely separated by society. This was an element of their history which lasted for many centuries until this particular century, actually the 20th century, when around the 70s, some of the Yazidis were allowed to attend the university in Baghdad and started becoming aware of the fact that unless they covered political positions, for instance, they couldn't really fight for their rights. The history is very complex, but the fact is that unless there is an awareness at political level of the discriminated populations and the fact that they can overcome the specific characteristics of their inner group, and overcome also the idea that they only can protect themselves and they cannot be proactive, promoting their own way of interpreting citizenship and governance. This kind of minorities cannot really emerge from the so-called darkness of their marginalized condition. So this is one example. Another example, of course, is tradition and religion. We know for a fact that Sudan, for instance, recently adopted a very revolutionary measure at juridical level by declaring in the criminal code female genital mutilations a crime. And I think that this, I have publicized this very much because I think it's a real revolution which follows the actual revolution that took place in Sudan and that's given way to a new course. And this is the typical demonstration that until now it was not Islam, because Sudan is still Islamic, of course, that it was not Islam itself that was promoting this kind of practices, but it was the local tradition, which is something that represents an interpretation of a way of life, of social roles, of the actual internal power chain between the different age classes, gender, and of course economic positions and political positions. So this is another example of something that demonstrates that in fact it is not Islam, but it is the tradition mixed with Islam that can create an explosive situation. Of course, we can go to other contexts in which the imbalance of power, not the balance of power, but the imbalance of power, and the fact that one part feels deprived of power, or both parts feel deprived of power, and they're fighting for the same resources, which are particularly limited, can also bring conflict, as well as, of course, another situation in which one feels stronger for a number of reasons because it's already enjoying a position of privilege, and the other, of course, is in a great difficulty and finds it difficult to emerge from a situation of deprivation and minority. The last thing I want to say, because I must be very brief, is that responding to the question, of course, there are solutions, although, of course, again, very complex. First of all, avoid generalization. Second of all, change the narrative. And also start from the local conditions rather than in fact, identifying a specific conflict or religion in doctrine, or the more general religious context in which that particular population is acting within a specific labeling, religious labeling. This must be avoided very carefully, and the narrative must change. Another element, of course, pointing on coexistence and dialogue. This is an easy solution. I find an easy solution. Ideally, of course, it's not easy at all. And the problem is that, unfortunately, until now, and even today, we are continuing in repeating that we have specific perceptions on, generalized perceptions on religions, and we think that we can just promote dialogue and coexistence between religions who have to be prepared or be let's say, able to engage in an open dialogue, welcoming other groups, or making sure that there is a sort of direct connection. I think that this should be overcome once again, because in order to avoid conflicts, we must make sure that there is, first of all, equality, inclusiveness, and let's say equal access to a true citizenship, because we cannot continue thinking that in interreligious dialogue or solutions for coexistence can be based on a reparative attitude. We have to start thinking in a more proactive way. I think that interreligious dialogue and in general practices for coexistence must be proactive, must start from the awareness of the situation, but must promote strategies at local level in which there is no question about the religious appartenance of each one. There is no necessarily an imposition of a specific behavior or mentality. There is the cooperation and engagement in trying to define a common ground based on equal access to citizenship and equal resources, to make sure that this process of conflict resolution becomes really sustainable over time. Otherwise, unfortunately, we have seen this for many years, and in particular myself, this can be very localized. There can be success in very small areas. There can be, let's say, an immediate enthusiasm, but as many conflicts have demonstrated, I just give you an example in Europe, Northern Ireland, it is not sustainable, fully sustainable. And therefore, I think that yes, religions can be a source of peace, but no religion can be a source of peace unless there is a sound democratic system that sustains the rights of citizens. And yes, religions, of course, can be a source of conflict because there is no democracy and there is no equal access to resources. And then I just conclude, the only way by which we can overcome these problems is really working seriously on the local situation. Usually models that we think can be replicated everywhere, I find it really absurd because, as I mentioned, it's not religion itself. All religions in the end, especially the religions of the book, but also other religions, always talk about coexistence, the promotion of people, and of course tend to make people aspire to a certain welfare, but unless we work closely on the condition on field, in particular, even area to area, village to village, we cannot solve the situation in one way or the other. I hope I've been clear, but I can come back on this later. Thank you.
We thank you very much. Vice Ministry, since you have not so much time anymore, can I just ask you the second question? So you are free to leave when your time is out. Thank you very much again. We published this book, that is Women of Albania, Migration, Tradition and Modernity. So you point out how tradition and the cultural situation are so important to understand the context on the grassroots level. Can I ask you, what do you think is so important to improve in the religions, understanding, how to understand religions in the cooperation, international cooperation? You lead the cooperation of the Italian government. How important now is to improve the knowledge of the religious plurality around the world? And second, what's the role of the women in this process?
Okay, you want me to speak for about 2 hours, all right? No, I'm joking. So no, I'm joking. Okay, two big questions. The first question is international cooperation, international development cooperation is very important when it is absolutely neutral. Because, of course, you know, there has been a huge discussion on the role of religious organizations in doing development cooperation, and on one hand, doing good to the population in terms of alleviating their conditions at local level, but at the same time, let's say, inculcating some of the principles of specific religions with the idea of making proselytism, which was not much appreciated by many. And I can tell you that there is a large movement, for instance, in Africa, against religious organizations, because they feel that these religious organizations, for large part, certainly until, let's say, the 70s or the 80s of the 20th century, have done, let's say, binary activity, and therefore have created suspicion and let's say this in the activities of faith-based organizations. I also want to say that instead, unless there were faith-based organizations in many areas, unfortunately, the communities would have not survived. Therefore, the gratitude for these organizations is very good, but it is time to reflect a bit more. We have gone very much, we have, let's say, grown very much aware of the fact that we have to be careful when we promote ideas and interpretations of religion without taking care of the context and the social context, as making sure that our way of proposing religion reflects the actual expectations, demands, or opportunities that can spring out of the communities. In this sense, I think that we should really make a strong discussion. We should deepen these problems and try to advance our way of approaching the issue. And therefore, this is something that I think should really become the challenge of the future. Another thing I want to say is danger of promoting religions. At the moment, there are many movements, and they come very much from the Christian domain, I would say, which are also promoting ideas that are quite extreme in a sense, and they are obviously let's say somehow acceptable if they are reflecting the personal choices of individuals, of course, but they are used many often in an ideological way. Also, let's say in international cooperation, promoting initiatives that seem to be devoted to religious freedom, but instead are promoting a specific approach to social life, to individual life, and also to the choices related to religious appartenance, with the aim of, in fact, going against specific countries or making a distinction between good countries and bad countries. This is also something that we should keep in mind, and it's a serious danger we are underestimating. So there is much more that I could say. I know the time is short, so I will just make a comment on. I just gave you just a hint on many of the topics that I think are very relevant. I think that the role of women, it goes without saying, is fundamental. Women and youth, well, Italy is very strong in this field. We are really leaders in the world, I would say, in women empowerment. Very many of our projects in development cooperation are devoted to women empowerment in the world. Definitely, religions in this sense are a true challenge, because we know very well that most religions have gone through different phases in their history, you know, with the promotion of the role of women in societies. The virtue of development cooperation is that because the personnel works face to face with the local communities, there is an opportunity to develop a change from within, making sure that with very small steps, the role of women can be understood, you know, appreciated, exploited in a way, and to make it understood as a role of people who can actually produce something for society and recognize the role in society. It's not easy at all, because religions often are a very big obstacle. We know that for a fact. But on this, in this sense, we can contribute, because the work of the international development cooperation in this field is very, very important, very, very incisive, very effective, and I think that can really make a change. Concluding on religions, I can say that, you know, it is to us to take into account all these elements. We can make religions a catalyzer for peace, but unfortunately sometimes we make very tragic mistakes, and we transform ourselves in, let's say, aware or not aware, let's say, promoters of negative effects. We have to be aware of this, because the damage that we have done in many contexts is something that we bring on our conscience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. We want to overcome the mistakes we made. So let me say a hooray for the cultural cooperation. Roma, Tirana, universities, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, the Embassy of Italy in Tirana, at the Catholic University, the CESPIC. Let's go on with this cultural cooperation. This is very important, I think. Thank you, Vice Minister Del Re, once again, and thank you, Caruso and Naso, for being with us. So, Paolo, Naso, this is your fault. You say religions are ways to peace. False. Why false?
First of all, I want to thank you all for this great opportunity you are giving me. My best greetings to my distinguished colleagues. And again, thank you not only for inviting me, but for deciding that this is an issue because sometimes we have the impression that this is not an issue. I wanted to raise a sort of a provocation, so to say. I wanted to react to the simple and easy idea that religions are perfect bodies, naturally, spiritually oriented to peace and justice, but there is a tribal manipulation by the political actors who succeed to manipulate and condition the good and positive trends of religiosities. This is not history. These are not the texts. If we go to the holy text, the Quran, the Bible, the Jewish Bible, the Christian Bible, I want to go to the New Testament, even the New Testament, that we appreciate as a book of peace, justice, and love. If you go to some section of the New Testament, things about the Revelation, the last book of the New Testament, you will approach incredibly aggressive images, incredibly war-oriented strategies. There is violence in the books. So we cannot say it's just a matter of political manipulation. Furthermore, if we go to the modern history, I don't want to go to the ancient histories, but let's go to the modern history. Even the moment when modern history starts, and we have good reasons to date this period with the 30 Years' War, this war is by definition a religious war. I know the argument. It was not a religious war. It was a political war, and religions have been manipulated for political purposes. I can even agree with this assumption, but I have a question. Why religions? How it happens that religions are so easy to be manipulated? How it happens that believers are so prompt to react violently to something that should be against their own conscience? Vice Minister mentioned Northern Ireland. I happened to work, research for many years in Northern Ireland before the peace agreements. I happen also to write a book on this issue. The Green and Orange was the title of the book. Why green and orange? Because if you were going to Northern Ireland in the 70s, in the 80s, in front the gate of a Catholic church, no doubt, would have been green. The gate of a Protestant church would have been orange. And these colors are not just aesthetics. This is politics. To decide to adopt the green color was a political program, as well as to say, no, I am orange, means that you referred to an old tradition starting from from Orange, so the Protestant domination in the counties of Northern Ireland. This is just an example. So I think that we have to react to these too easy, too benevolent opinion according which religions by themselves are good, but there is the evil power of politics manipulating them. If we don't arrive to clearly adopt this statement, we will fail trying to give the religions the possibility to be actors in peacemaking and in peace negotiation. This is my point number one. The importance of the religious factor in geopolitics. Not as an expression of manipulation, but as expression of identity that interacts with conflict. Number two, the word that I would like to raise and underline is fundamentalism. And I want to stress the plural, because I want to say that when we deal with fundamentalism, we don't deal with the quantitative plural only. It's very obvious. Should be. It should be very obvious that we have an Islamic fundamentalism as well as we have a Christian fundamentalism, a Jewish fundamentalism, a Hindu fundamentalist, a Buddhist fundamentalist. All the religions have their own fundamentalism. That is not just an expression to mean radicalism or traditionalism. No, if I fundamentalism, I pretend we have a scientific interpretation of this word. It means that they do believe in fundamental principles they are not willing to negotiate in any way. And the first of these value that is not negotiable is the priority, the exclusiveness of their own principles and dogmas. So we have a quantitative pluralism, we have many fundamentalism, but we know that we have also a qualitative pluralism. I mean that we have to learn to make a clear scientific distinctions between different levels of fundamentalism, between different kind of fundamentalism. For instance, there are some fundamentalism that are simply a traditional approach to the religion. Women wearing scarf. Another kind of fundamentalism is the literalism in approaching the text. The text is sacred. We cannot pretend to make any interpretation of it. So we have to adopt it as it is, without any explication, contextualization, this kind of modern methodologies. We have another kind of fundamentalism that is exclusivism. And going on, we arrive to terrorism. If we don't have a clear perception of this scale of incidence of fundamentalism in the public arena and in the political system, we will never be able to be effective in contrasting fundamentalism. The word number 3, and I'm going to finish this first speech, is about dialogue. Yeah, wonderful word, dialogue. I think that we have to be very severe and very precise when we appeal to dialogue as a tool for peacemaking, because dialogue can just freeze our differences, our tensions, our conflicts. Think about Israeli and Palestinians. They dialogue, but what's the sense of this dialogue? What is the genuinity? What is the political effectiveness of this dialogue? Is none. So when we go to dialogue, I would like to precise that there is a precondition for dialogue. If this precondition is not accepted by the partners, in my own vision, there is not genuine dialogue, or there is a very superficial dialogue that does not have any political sense. The precondition is the recognition of freedom of religion and belief. If we don't have this basic precondition, if we don't sit at the table of dialogue thinking that freedom of religion is a prejudicial element to start and to nurture the dialogue, I think that the dialogue itself doesn't go anywhere. We have to be modern in that. We need some injection of secularism in our approach. It means that we need to know that the other, in faith, in culture, is free, and it does not have to justify his difference, his freedom. And be aware, I'm not thinking of freedom of religion, but I'm thinking also of freedom of belief. That is something different. If this is a precondition, there are some specificities that I would like to raise. Number one, I think that a good dialogue has a specific agenda. When I was younger, much younger, I was director of Confronti. We were in the 80s, and it was fantastic to start dialogue. And it was fantastic to learn shalom, salam, this kind of affinities, this kind of a nice gesture, an imam hugging a priest and vice versa. Wonderful. But that kind of dialogue in the 80s didn't have a clear agenda. So 10 years later, we were still at the level of shalom, salam, big hug, big ceremonies, but without this precise agenda, this dialogue was not productive at all. So if we want to strategize, politically speaking, to use the dialogue, the interfaith dialogue as a tool for peacemaking, we need to be very exigent when we say which kind of dialogue and about what. So an agenda. Number two, it has to be circular, a circular dialogue, top down, but also on the reverse. We are very aware of the importance of the prayer for dialogue, Assisi 86 and 202. They were wonderful moments of top-level dialogue, but the limit of that experience was that top-level meetings were not accompanied, supported by the same involvement at the local level. At the same time, I think that if the dialogue is just a grassroots level, just rooted in the local community, but does not involve the leaders of the community, is ineffective. So what we need is a circular dialogue. Number three, and I am going to my conclusion, it has to be clearly, formally, structurally oriented to peacemaking. We are not in dialogue just to confront or to study our differences. This is a very, very, very preliminary level of dialogue. If we want to adopt dialogue as a tool for peacemaking, we have to be very intentional and vocal in saying from the very beginning that we meet in Tirana, we meet in Jerusalem, we meet in Belfast, we meet in South Africa. I'm thinking also of the conflict in South Africa, the racial conflict in South Africa, or in South Sudan, not to have a conversation about our spiritualities, our sect books, and our dogmas. But we are in dialogue because we want to be intentionally oriented to peacemaking, and this has to be clarified from the very beginning. So, going to the very end, I think that the sense of what we are doing this afternoon is to remark that geopolitics is a very important factor. Geopolitics is not just a matter of power, is not an agenda of dominions, of colonies, of territories, or identities, but in the geopolitical dynamics, there is an essential factor that, according to what I try to share tonight, is the R factor, R as religion. And we can have a new geopolitical strategy, and we can elaborate a new and modern contextual geopolitics only if we assume the importance and the relevance of this R factor. and thank you for your attention.
Paolo, thank you very much. The R factor, religion factor, we need a specific agenda, we need new tools, we need the recognition of freedom of religion and belief, and we are talking about aiming to peace, and peace is a very important matter. And when I have to study about peace, I read on my Kindle Economia della Pace of Raul Caruso. Raul, what do you have to say about religions and peace from your specific field?
Thank you, Claudio. I must say that now it's difficult to speak after the Emanuela and Paolo Naso because they say almost everything. So I had to find something they didn't say before. In my perspective, yeah, but it's a good question. In the eyes of an economist, what does it mean? What does it mean dialogue between religions, for example? In the eyes of an economist, or better, in the eyes of a scholar of political economy, the point is that when we speak about religions, in fact, we speak about religious groups. That means we speak about groups, about communities within a polity that have to coexist. They have to coexist, they have to exchange, they have to handle resources, they have to, in practice, they have to carry on a bunch of economic actions. And this is the grassroots perspective, actually, in the sense that I don't see any, I don't know whether it's religion in itself the problem that could take shape between groups, but perhaps how economy is managed could create problems. I think that Emanuela Ray has said before many times. She has remarked the role of inequality, and she also used a magic on the dark side, the magic word of discrimination. The citation on Northern Ireland is in particular very fitting in this respect. Why? Because you know, years ago, everybody we were aware that we knew that Catholics in Northern Ireland, for example, in Belfast, couldn't have access to public administration. You know, that means that in the eyes of an economist, liberty and freedom are nothing but bunches of opportunities that individuals and households have, and usually dominant groups are likely to constrain a set of opportunities of groups which don't belong to the dominant group. That's the point. So when Paolo Naso speaks about manipulation, he says basically he says the truth, but it's not only in the short time. It also can be a permanent situation, in the sense that whenever some groups hold the political power for years and they discriminate on a systematic basis the other groups, it's by definition it's impossible to have peace. Famous, and we know that this is true when we speak about management of resources, for example. Now there is a kind of widespread awareness that bad management of natural resources lead to conflict. That's true. And it is also true that good management of natural resources lead to peaceful coexistence. And in this respect, is whenever such management is related to specific social groups, which could be religious characterized or not, lead or not to conflict. So what I'm saying is that basically we consider religion as a characteristic which is which should eventually shape the management of the economy. Okay, and I think in history we have plenty of examples. Since the ancient Greece, for example, when democracy was created, we knew that, for example, the religious figures of that society were claiming specific rights on some resources, for example. So inequality, discrimination, access to resources is crucial now, because we know that at global level inequality has been increasing for years, since 2008, since the global crisis of 2008, because of climate change, because of erosion of soil due to climate change, because of desertification in Africa, for example. We knew that such huge competition for resources is going to become harsher and harsher over time. And at least this is a serious concern about that. And this is the basic point. So when we speak about democracy and minority, and for even religious minority, we also speak about how such minorities are entitled to manage resources. In this respect, I want to go back to another thing said by Paolo Naso, when he said that dialogue is an agenda. If you read carefully the Oslo agreement between Israel and Palestinians in 1993, you see nothing about economics. You know, how is possible? I mean, or at least nothing, but really few about economy. What does it mean? It means that kind of agreement was unsuccessful by definition, because economy is what the individuals live every day. So economic prescription should be priorities, or not at least at the same level of prioritization with respect to, if compared with other identity issues like religion, for example. And I think that the 1993 Oslo Peace Agreement is a handbook example in this respect. How is possible that such agreement was a failure, because the conflict is still there, because there is no economy in that. There is no prescription about resources. There is no prescription about inequality in assessing public administration, for example, and so on. This is my first point. My first point is that it's not religion. So in a few words, it's not religion itself, but rather is how religious group, that means namely social groups, are balanced are balanced or not in managing resources and other economic activities. The second point, very quickly, is about preferences. In our economic approach to interpreting behaviors of individuals, we think that each of us, as rational actors, are equipped with some preference, with some taste, with some traits. We prefer, if you read the handbook of economics, we prefer apples to bananas. Everybody is happy with this simple example because it shows what's the economic way of thinking. But there is another thing that we have been studying in the latest few years, is that sometimes preferences have some focal point that, if is not satisfied, the rest of preferences doesn't work. What does it mean? It means that it's usual. If you ask me if I prefer apples or bananas, this question means nothing for individuals. If, for example, if and only if some prerequisite is satisfied or not. For example, if you ask me if I like apples, I would say yes, if and only if human rights are respected, for example. So religion imposes these focal points this priority, this lexicographic preferences is the technical name. For example, and what Paolo Naso say is essential. Say that do you like a bigger income for your household? You would say yes. Many people would say yes, but if and only if my freedom, my liberty in religion is respected, because it's a human right. So this is what religions, what culture and culture give to individuals, the bounds of their economic preferences. In the sense that individuals like to eat more bananas, or eat more apples, to have a more fashion dress, be more fashion dress, if and only if some specific points are respected. And this is a matter of religion. This is what religions do. In this respect, this is what we have to take care. And why Emanuela was right when say that all things we say here must be context specific, because religion in different contexts provide us with different focal points. That's it as my first round.
Thank you, Raul Caruso. And Paolo, let's come back to politics and geopolitics. In the last century, we had Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mandela, great, religion people, champions of human rights for all of us. And today we have Bolsonaro, Trump, Orban. What's the big difference? So religions and politics, what's happening? Mike. Microfono, apri il microfono, Paolo.
His connection is not working.
Yeah, I think he just has the mic off.
No, it's not only the mic. It's the connection.
Okay,
He's here. He's back.
Okay, I'm here. We are living in the wrong days. This is my answer to your question.
You're probably right. Yes.
These are the wrong days. No, this is absolutely a confirmation of what I try to share with you. Religions are not only a spiritual factor, are a very practical factor. If we go sociologically, it's very evident that religions are structures, and these structures react with the political context. And at this point, these people that you mentioned try to adopt their religious label, their religious identity, to do political marketing in a very effective way. So no surprise. Again, no surprise. If we have an historical view of the phenomenon, we see that this is not the first time that it happens. Let's go to, we mentioned South Africa. South Africa is a very important study case. This was not an international war. It was an internal war, domestic war. And those who defended apartheid very clearly and blatantly were using biblical words to say that apartheid was rooted in the Bible. And this is a good part of the story. Apartheid ended only when this theological and biblical interpretation was destroyed. Only when there was an alternative narrative, an alternative interpretation of the Bible, the reconciliation process could start. So in this sense, nothing new. I think that it is very, very important what Raul said about power, the importance of power and economy in the conflict. And he is fully right when he says that the destiny of the 1993 agreement, Oslo agreement, was in some sense predictable. It was predictable because we had the idea that peace is a situation of feelings. Is a control of feelings. I am more benevolent with you. And I'm sorry, we played a very negative role instead, because we made some poetry about the new Middle East and the new opportunities that were open to Palestinians and Israeli after this agreement. But the core of the problem, power, economy, border, that core was not touched by the agreement. So again, in this sense, when I stress the importance of the R factor at the same time, I want to say that this factor is not exclusive, is not the key, but is one of the most effective keys, plural, to manage some conflict situations.
Yes, Paolo, power, water, rights, economy. So Raul, borders,
land.
Raul, you're a political economist, so I want to ask you, if you don't follow the money, we don't understand theology, we don't understand religions all around the world, follow the money is important to understand the peace process and the religions spread around the world. This is very important. I don't know if someone is studying this thing through this, eye. Follow the money is important, not just for the cultural influence, but even for religious influence, or not?
Sorry, I'm here. Yes, Claudio, you're perfectly right, because we know that, especially now that the world is becoming a world of diasporas. We work here in Albania that as a diaspora, but there are in the next 10 years there will be many diasporas, because now people are forced or are willing to move around the world, and with them they move with their own ideas, with their own culture, with their own religion. Okay, this means that of course mobility of humans leads also to mobility of capitals and money in general. The point is that we know that by definition, people cluster, even in migration, in the sense that what we could expect is that groups are usually together, especially for family ties, are used together in a specific location around the world. Okay, so we have for example, even at the urban level, within a town, you see that there are areas where people belong to the same religion, for example, because people gather with other people of their own group. Okay, because they feel comfortable in doing this. In this respect, the famous Nobel graduate Thomas Schelling wrote as famously saying that people self-segregate. Okay, so it's necessary to have some policies in order to avoid too much self-segregation. Okay, and this happens with money too. Money that means flows of capital, flows of resources is used to be polarized. It's not only because of a stock exchange that polarizes money as well, but even because of polarization of people. So the point is that even in this respect, what we can predict that in the future, if mobility goes on, there will be in the world, even because we have another trend that been knowing for years, that urbanization everywhere in the world now. We are waiting for these mega towns, Mexico City, Tokyo, Caracas. That we know that in the future the world will be characterized by huge urban settlements, and everybody is going into these towns, right? So it's not like Italy but yes, a bit more like Albania, but most of the population is within the same town. Okay, so polarization of groups and urbanization is likely to polarize economy of groups, economic activity of some groups in some specific places. But this, it could be also risk, because it means that for example, some inequality could emerge also within the same religion group. Okay, that, for example, some Christians, there would be poor Christians somewhere in the world, and rich Christians in Boston or New York City, for example, and the Muslim somewhere in many places in the world, and maybe a rich Muslim. Okay, that's something that we already we already know. Okay, but this could be emphasized. It could be worsened in the very near future, even because after this crisis, that will be the hugest, I mean, the most worrying shock of the latest 200 years, my perspective, in next year, because now we still don't know, but next year we will see what's happening to the world. And what's happening to the world, that I think the mobility will increase. And if mobility will increase, is a kind of science fiction plot, in the sense that you will have some centers of the world with rich people and the rich groups, maybe fighting each other or fighting, we don't know, and the rest of the world which is poor. So in this respect, I think that we even, if religion are able, or religious leaders are able to avoid such a polarization of money, this could be a role that they can play. Christians and Muslims, but even Jewish, usually do this, have done, but perhaps now it's time to focus much more on this, to avoid superior risk in the future. This is what my thought about that.
Yeah, about the future, Paolo Naso, the last question is, there is any future for democracy, globalization, and religions together? Can we figure out how to have a new world, but taking together democracy, globalization, and religions, and post-COVID era, maybe? Microfono, Paolo.
Yeah, thank you. I think so. I think so. I think that a new marriage between religious democracy, human rights is possible. It will depend from a variety of conditions. I see three major factors. Number one, how the confrontation within the communities of faith will be resolved. Mm-hmm. All the major communities of faith are polarized. Think about Islam, think about Christianity, Judaism, polarized between, I oversimplify, between a liberal wing and a traditional conservative wing.
That's it.
And
that's it.
This is a time of open confrontation. Even what happens around Pope Francis is a manipulation of the information about what is happening in the Vatican is part of these dramatic confrontation between different theologies, different theological ethics, and so on. So this is one factor. A second factor will be the capacity of the democracies to answer basic needs. Mm-hmm. No way to discuss about coexistence, intercultural approach, interculturalism, if there are millions of people who don't have the piece of bread on their table. If the political system will not solve the challenging problem of a dramatic concentration of the financial and economic resources in very few hands, even in less hands than before. So if the crisis everywhere, the global crisis, will be deeper in the next decades, I don't see any option but a radicalization of social conflict and religious conflict by consequences. Mm-hmm. So the second factor is the capacity of the democratic system to answer basic needs of vast sectors of population. Number three and this is very Italian and European, the capacity of a European Union to be meaningful in this picture. I think that we desperately need some international bodies of compensation, mediation, international control. I do hope that the role of European Union will be effective in monitoring about some anti-democratic processes that are happening in Hungary and in other European states. I do hope Union will be effective in denouncing the fact that what is happening in these countries is again the literature and the spirit of the European Pact, of the European Covenant. So the third factor is how the international bodies, European Union, United Nations, will be empowered to face these global dynamics. I think that if some of these processes will go in the right direction, a new conciliation between religiosities, human rights, democracy is very possible. I am still thinking that what we are experiencing is not a physiology of the democratic system, but it is a pathology of the democratic systems, and as any pathology, it can be properly treated.
Yes, thank you, Paolo. Coming back to peace, Raul Caruso, we understand that we need a green economy, and Pope Francis said it very clear. We need a green economy, a green sensibility, even starting from the believer point of view of a Catholic. So the question is, we need a green economy. Do we need a green religions?
That's a very good and difficult question in the end, but that's challenging for me because usually I don't mention Pope Francis, but now you ask me to do this. So because Pope Francis says something very clear in Laudato Si, which is not about environment, is not about basically what Pope Francis wrote is that sustainability or environmental economy makes no sense if we still put a lot of money into blue research on weapons, military devices. So it's quite clear that it would be, and it's exactly the mistake we are making in the world, in the European level. In both US and European Union, now there is a huge trend about green bonds, green investment, green everything. And I'm happy with that. I'm not saying I'm happy, but the green economy needs to be included within a larger vision. The larger vision is that the green economy is nothing but a component of a peace economy. Consider that the founding father of green economy was also the founding father of the peace economics. And he was speaking about religion, he was a Quaker. He was a British Quaker, camp building, working in the US. And basically it's impossible to disentangle the green economy with peace. And it's necessary, so thanks for this question, but it's necessary to highlight this because, there was a guy in history who was really keen with environmental issues. It was Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, the worst enemy of peace in history of humankind. He was a vegan. He was green. He was in favor of green investments. Okay, but the paradox that was he inflamed the world. He made the worst possible that a humans can do. Never seen something like Holocaust. Okay, in history of humanity. So the point is that the green economy means nothing if we, like Pope Francis say, if we don't stop first reducing the risk, if we don't think about peace. That's the point. So peace ought to be our first objective. And the sustainability, the green economy is nothing but a component of this. This is what Pope Francis says, and this is what I think that other religious leaders should embrace. That, and in the end, I think they do, because if we depend many scripts, many religious scripts, many religious statements, we found something very similar. So I think that being green, to finish, being green is fashion. Being feasible maybe is less fashion, but it's time to think in this way.
Thank you, Raul Caruso. I want to thank everybody for this great hour together. Thank you to Paolo Naso. Thank you to Vice Ministry Del Re. Thank you to Professor Giardina. Thank you for the Embassy of Italian Republic in Albania, and to all of you, professors and students. And we are very grateful as Confronti to be a small partner of your big and important institution. Thank you, Raul Caruso, again, and I give you the floor for the conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Claudio Paravati, for chairing so brilliantly this meeting. Even because finally you has been the first to remove myself from chairing meetings, so everybody's happy at the moment in Tirana. Thank you to our guest, to Paolo Naso. Thank you to the Vice Minister, even if she's not with us at the moment with us. But I think this has been a great meeting. In particular, as the Rector of CESPIC, I'm quite honored to organize, in this case with you, this kind of meetings, because these are topics which are really interdisciplinary, but also intercultural, that they are the basis, the pillars of, should be the pillars of thinking. Reflection about these topics are essential for students that are now shaping their own preferences about life, about professional careers, about vision of the world, and so on. So thank you everybody for being here. Now I leave you with giving the floor to our Rector, Professor Bruno Giardina.
Thank you very much. It was, as expected, very interesting and stimulating. I have to thank you all very much from my heart, because you did a very good job. A lot of meat has been on fire, and we have really think a lot about this way of approaching the peace concept. I have to thank Dr. Paravati for, it was really a very good job, and the Deputy Minister, Professoressa Emanuela Del Re. But I was really impressed by Professor Naso ideas about manipulation of religions and the interpretation of the word dialogue, and of his ideas about fundamentalisms. And all these things are really interconnected. There is a strong linkage between all these things, and maybe I'm wrong, but the real linkage is the R factor.
The R factor is in some way everywhere. And we have to take care of this. I mean, it was, for me, it was a great afternoon. Thank you very much. And I hope to meet you in the very next future personally, let's say, not by computer. Thank you.
Will be an honor.
So it's a good end. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Arrivederci,
Bye.
grazie.
Ciao.
Arrivederci,
Bye,
Nice
to
day.
everybody.
Ciao.
Thank you.
See you in Tirana next time. Bye bye.
Yes.
Molto volentieri.
That's a
Molto volentieri.
promise.
In
Volentieri.
Tirana, everybody in Tirana. Thank you.
Shumë faleminderit.
Faleminderit. Yeah.
Ciao Raul.
Arrivederci, professore. Ci sentiamo presto.